Alright, so I have been thinking about this quite a bit over the last week or so since I recently finally went back and finished Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and also recently finally completed Tears of the Kingdom. Both were pretty fun experiences, um, but I have very different opinions on both. And one thing I like to do just for fun on my own is I love to do a ranking of a series or really anything I'm into just for fun. I'll put it in my notes and do like a ranking to kind of understand where I think each game falls. And I was going to do that for Zelda since at this point I've played almost all of the mainline games and have some pretty strong opinions on each of them. And I figured, might as well record it and just make a video about it. So here I am. I'm going to rank every mainline Zelda game that I've played. A few of them I haven't played, which I'll add to the didn't play section here. But let's go ahead and do a tier listing. All right. So where should I start? Let's see. Maybe I'll start somewhere in the middle, somewhere safe, like with a safe S tier pick to just center us on something obvious. And I think something obvious, of course, would be Zelda Ocarina of Time. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I remember being super hyped for this one when it came out, reading Nintendo Power magazine. I was pretty young at the time. This was one of my first big hyped releases. And honestly, it did not disappoint. It was so cool to finally see a Zelda game in a fully realized 3D world. I spent so much time on this game. I played through it so many times. Had all these crazy theories with my friends and I. God, I think we even wrote like some really bad fan fiction when we were in elementary school or middle school or something. But yeah, had a great time with that game, and I'm always gonna have great memories of that one. Well, let's pick something else. Let's get some out of the way. I did not really play any of the multiplayer games, so I'm just going to drop those down here, which that's going to include Triforce Heroes also. So 4 Swords, Triforce Heroes, none of that stuff. I did play the Game Boy Advanced remake, which I believe included 4 Swords, but I'm not going to include that here. So get those out of the way. All right, so next, where should I go? Let's go right into, speaking of Ocarina of Time, let's talk about the follow-up, Majora's Mask. And honestly, I know Majora's Mask gets a ton of love, and I loved the vibe of Majora's Mask. I love how differently they took it. I love how quickly it released after Ocarina of Time. But this is a game that, in the moment when I played it, I thought it probably would have been, S tier the first time I played it. But looking back, I've tried to go back to this game since then, and it just really stresses me out. The whole timer thing. I know it's an interesting game mechanic, but it really stresses me out. I have zero interest in ever going back and playing this game. And I know even the 3DS remake added some quality of life stuff. For me, this is one that just sits firmly in the middle. I had a great time with it back when it came out, but I rarely ever think to go back. And when I want that classic Zelda experience, it's probably something more like Ocarina of Time. So, sorry, it's just not it. It's just not it. All right, let's pick another fun one. Let's go. You know what? Let's go Breath of the Wild. Easy S tier, for sure. I really love my classic Zelda games, but Breath of the Wild was just so fresh, so new. I was feeling at the time pretty burnt out on open world games. I also just wasn't really sure I loved the direction that the Zelda games were heading at the time. Which I'll get to Skyward Sword here in a minute. But I loved Breath of the Wild so much, and I think there's very, very, very few times in like gaming history where you can capture that. It was a new console, it was a Switch release. Me and my friends, like, kind of reconnected over this game and just going through it and discovering. And I felt like everyone was discovering this game on the internet all at the same time. There was just something new. The more and more we got into it, and I just think that it was just such an amazing experience. So easy S tier game. All right, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Link's Awakening. And when I talk about Link's Awakening, I'm going to include both the original Game Boy Color version, and the new Switch remake. So Link's Awakening was a game I really loved when I was a kid on the original Game Boy. It got even better with the Game Boy Color version. They added in the Color Dungeon, and it's just got all the classic Zelda beats. I love the dungeon design. There's some really, really challenging dungeon designs. I really love the remake that they did. The remake was interesting because when it initially came out, I was like, man, this is just too similar to the Game Boy version. But then I went back to it a couple years later, and I just had the best time with it, even better on Switch too. It's not an S tier though. The reason it's not S tier is because it's still kind of a pain, right? Like, it was a Game Boy game. The controls are kind of a pain. I really hated having to switch around between, like, the feather is an item that you have to equip to jump. And they made this a little better with the Switch version by adding in some more controls and streamlining it a bit, so it definitely helps. But to me, it's never going to be on the S tier, but it's still a solid A to me. I'll always have a great time. This is a Zelda game that's got that classic feel that I will definitely go back to. So Link's Awakening. What about the follow-ups to Link's Awakening? Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. I'm gonna do these together. I know you could probably debate which of the two are better, but to me these are like the same game, just broken up into two different parts. I'll be honest, guys. I did not like these games at all, not even a little bit. Now these are different because I went back to these as an adult. Maybe like 5 years ago, I went through and just binged all of the Zelda games. And I hadn't played these games at the time, and I just came off Link's Awakening and then went into these. And what I did not like about these games is some of the puzzles were just so obtuse. Like, you just had to walk all over the map and talk to this right person in the right spot at the right time, and pretty much couldn't get through these games without a guide. The dungeon design, in my opinion, just was not as good. I thought it was a clever gimmick, breaking it up into the two games. That was a big deal at the time with Pokemon. I also know these two weren't actually developed by Nintendo, so maybe that plays into it a little bit, but it just didn't have that same feel. These very much just felt like side quests. So I didn't like these. I mean, honestly, these might even be D's. But I'm gonna stick it at C. Like, I think it still feels like Link's Awakening, so I think that pulls it up to me, but I wasn't a huge fan of either of these. On that Game Boy train, on Game Boy Advance, Minish Cap, I almost might put this in the did not play because I didn't finish it. Not because I didn't like it, it was just at the time I played it, just had too much going on, and it was just something I never really was able to go back to. But what I did play, I played a good amount of it, and I had a great time. I love the animations, I love the art style, it was really fun. To me, it's like a solid B. It also kind of felt like a little bit of a side story in that way. The like Minish thing where you get smaller, I didn't love that. It was a little odd, but it's a solid B. It's a great time, a great Zelda game. It's kind of in that Wind Waker era, which I'll get to my opinion on that in a little bit, but it was a solid, it was a good time. All right, so I feel like I can't talk about this without talking about Wind Waker, and let's get into that. And Wind Waker, I'm real mixed on this one, to be honest. I really am. I know you ask some people this is the best Zelda game of all time. Some people say it's the worst. I'm not really in either camp. I do remember when this game was announced, I was in the crowd that was pretty disappointed with the art style. And I felt pretty let down after coming off of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and then there was that teaser that Nintendo put out where it had that realistic art style, and I was so hyped up for it. I remember reading all the IGN articles about speculations about what that game could be, and then we got Wind Waker. I will say that despite the initial disappointment when I eventually did play it, I had fun with it. I thought the art style was awesome. I loved those fluid animations. The world was really cool. I thought the sailing stuff was interesting, but it was kind of boring in the game, and this game was also pretty tedious. This is another game that I try to go back to it because it's so beloved, and I feel like, man, maybe if I just really go back and give it another try now, I might like it more. I never played the Wii U HD remake. Maybe that would change my opinion because it took out some stuff, but I didn't love this one. It's not a C, it's not a D, it's not an A or an S. I think Wind Waker is another solid B tier. I think I'd put it like right here if we were to put it in order. So Wind Waker, sorry to the Wind Waker lovers, it just wasn't really my favorite. Let's talk about the follow-up though, Twilight Princess. Man, this game was so hyped, so hyped up when it finally came out. This is another weird one where I was so excited about it being announced, but I didn't play it on release. I went back years later and played the Wii version and had a great time. Really enjoyed it. This is almost an S tier for me because it has that classic Zelda feel that I really like. I think the reason I'm going to drop it down to an A is because it's a little tedious. It's very tutorial heavy, especially in the beginning. And I also feel like they swung a little too hard into being dark and edgy. It has some of that 2000s like Prince of Persia, Warrior Within kind of edginess to it that feels a little forced at times. So it's not a perfect game. It's not one I see myself going back to over and over like some of these others. But I still really loved what they did with it. And in my opinion, Twilight Princess Link is the best design. I love that amiibo. I love that design. Anytime it pops up, I always try and use it in the other Zelda games. So had a great time with that. Speaking of let's kind of go back to Wind Waker era Zelda. Let's talk about a couple of games on the DS that kind of continued that trend. And let's talk about Phantom Hourglass. Oh gosh. Boy, I hated this game. There are very few Zelda games I would put down here, but that's an easy D. I despise almost everything about this game. The controls on the DS. I also didn't love that they were sticking with that Wind Waker art style when, they had begun to move on to this more realistic art style with Twilight Princess. And those awful controls where you had to even blow into the DS, I think, and do all kinds of awkward things. And it had that terrible dungeon. You just had to keep returning to it and making progress on it and doing the same things over and over and over. This was a Zelda game that I just did not like at all. And I got no problem saying that. I despise Phantom Hourglass. I will never go back and play it again. Which is also surprising for the next game, because immediately after playing Phantom Hourglass, I went and played Spirit Tracks, and I had the best time. I don't know what it is about Spirit Tracks. It is so ridiculous. It is so strange and ridiculous and silly, but it doesn't try to be any more serious or epic than it needs to be. You're just building train tracks, doing these really silly dungeons, Maybe at the time it was like such a contradiction to how much I despise Phantom Hourglass, and the surprise of me liking Spirit Tracks made me feel even stronger about it. But like this, this might be controversial. This is an A. This is an A for me, and like putting it above some of these others. Like, sorry guys for the Wind Waker Majora's Mask lovers, but Spirit Tracks, and that particular moment in time that I played it, I had so much fun with it, and that this is one that I could see myself going back to, absolutely, because I really enjoyed Spirit Tracks. So I didn't think it would end up in A, but as I'm sitting here doing the ranking, yeah, I think so. Also, quickly, you know what? I never played the original Zelda games enough to have a strong opinion on them, so I feel like I would enjoy the original Zelda if I played it with a guide. I've played a little bit of it, but I don't feel I've played enough, so I'm just going to throw those down there. All right, let's get to some of the newer games. You know, actually, let's take a step back. Let's talk Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is my all-time favorite Zelda game, and in fact, all-time favorite game ever. This was the first Zelda game I ever played. At the time, I thought it was so difficult. You know, I was pretty young, but I got through it. I do think at one point I ended up finding a guide at a game store, reading the guide while I played. But A Link to the Past will always have a very special place in my heart. To me, it just perfectly captures everything that I love about the series. It's a big adventure. It's so much fun. The way in which you're just slowly unlocking new dungeons as you progress with new weapons, new gear, new abilities. It's just that classic Zelda framework, and this was before it got super gimmicky. I mean, they had the kind of like light and dark world thing, but they weren't trying to mix it up. It was very pure at the time, and also such a big step forward in hindsight, a big step forward from the previous game. So A Link to the Past, easy S tier, and the top. This is like an S plus if I had it for me. It will always be awesome. And on that note, the sequel, A Link Between Worlds, also, you know what, really, really good. At the time that I played it, I was probably very influenced by nostalgia. At the time that I played it, I would have been like, oh, one of the best of all time. In hindsight, I feel less about that. I think that was more just the nostalgia of A Link to the Past, bringing back some of those feelings, because they did such a great job with capturing the feel of A Link to the Past with the music and the sound effects. But this is an easy A tier for me. Probably put it. It's definitely better than Spirit Tracks. I had a great time with it. I would love to go back to this game. It's a little weird that it was on 3DS, and I don't have a 3DS anymore, unfortunately. But I would love to go back to this game. Okay. Where should we go next? I think I'll end with Echoes of Wisdom. Let's talk Skyward Sword. This is another game that I'm sorry. I just do not enjoy Skyward Sword at all. Both the original Wii version and the Switch remake. The Switch version was a little better because it kind of got rid of the motion controls, but because it was built around motion controls, the controls were just so awkward translating to a controller. Some of the dungeons were really cool. I thought the art style was cool. It was like a cool in between of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. But gosh, this game was so tedious to play. And it easily ranks among one of the worst Zelda experiences for me. Just did not enjoy it. And so I apologize to Skyward Sword lovers, but this is just not the direction I wanted the series to go in. And I was so glad when Breath of the Wild came out to see that we just completely shook it up, and just put a lot more faith into the player's ability to figure things out on their own, because Skyward Sword was so handholdy. I just did not enjoy it. All right, so now let's talk Tears of the Kingdom. And man, I'm real mixed on Tears of the Kingdom. I really wanted to love it. I didn't hate it. I had a great time with it. But no, it was nowhere close to evoking some of the same feelings that Breath of the Wild had. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't fresh, it wasn't new anymore. It was the same map, and the stuff that they added, though, I didn't love. The sky was disappointing. The depths, I just did not enjoy the depths. It was dark, confusing. There really wasn't that much interesting down there. I mean, granted, I didn't explore the whole thing, but every time I went down into the depths, I just did not really have a great time. The building stuff, Ultra Hand, all of that, you know, I didn't like it at first, but the more and more I played the game, I actually really had a ton of fun with the building. But this game was interesting, where like Breath of the Wild was amazing, but it had a lot of tedious stuff that I was hoping they'd get rid of. Like cooking was still annoying. You have to cook one thing at a time and watch the animation. The weapon durability I didn't love, and they just went even harder on that with Tears of the Kingdom, because now once something breaks, you've got to fuse everything again. The game, I feel like, really picks up once you finally get the Master Sword, so that's so late in the game. I also didn't love, spoilers, but I didn't love the like fake out ending where you finally get to the castle and then you realize there's actually so much more that you need to do down in the depths. I was not excited to go back down to the depths when I thought I was getting close to the end of the game. And I didn't really have a great time exploring this game too much. So, like, to me, maybe it's not a C, but I don't know. It's not an A for me. It might be a B. C feels a little harsh. To me, it's like a solid B minus for me. I really was wishing that we'd get Breath of the Wild, but lean into better dungeons, some of those classic Zelda motifs, and instead we just went even harder into this like playground kind of mode, which is just not what I want out of Zelda. So I hope that the next Zelda game takes inspirations from classic Zelda and Breath of the Wild with player freedom, but brings in some of those classic motifs. Okay, and then let's wrap up with Echoes of Wisdom, which is the most recent game I played. And, what a great game. What a great game. I had such a fun time with this game. Like, is it perfect? No. Is it a little too easy sometimes? Absolutely. But I love the art style. I love how they kind of took the Link's Awakening remake art style and evolved it. I love how they took the game mechanics of a bunch of different games and kind of really smartly combined them together. I think it was really interesting playing as Zelda, with like summoning different things. So to me, is this an S tier? Maybe, because it took a lot of what I loved about Link's Awakening and improved on it. Oh, is this S tier? I think the fact that I have to think about it so much means it's probably not. So in that case, this is a really high A tier for me. Really high A tier for me. So yeah, let's take a look at the list. I mean, does this ranking even make sense? Link to the Past, Ocarina, Breath of the Wild, Echoes of Wisdom, Link's Awakening, Twilight Princess, Link Between Worlds, Spirit Tracks. Yeah, Spirit Tracks. Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Minish Cap, Tears of the Kingdom. I'll move Tears of the Kingdom up a little bit. I liked it more than Wind Waker. Yeah. These guys here, yeah. I think that makes sense to me. So, You know, I don't think there's such thing as a bad Zelda game. Well, maybe Phantom Hourglass. This deserves if I had an F tier, I would put that there. You know what? Let's do it. Let's add a special tier just for Phantom Hourglass. It's an F. Phantom Hourglass, you are there. Because I will never play that one again. That's the only F experience for me. But yeah. But I will say, you know, I love pretty much every Zelda game except for Phantom Hourglass. I'll continue to play this series. Maybe one day I'll go back to play some of the classics, but look forward to see where the series goes next. So thank you for watching. If you got to the end, cool. If you care about Zelda as much as I do, cool. If you don't, that's also cool. But thanks for watching.